We are so back. 14 games in the books. Week 1 almost complete, and we are here to instantly react to all of it. The fantasy picks that you made correctly, the ones that you feel and want to light and set on fire on immediately. That's what this show is for. Hayden, it's a whirlwind always on this Sunday night reaction show. How you feeling?
Yeah, I had my first set of rankings for this upcoming season back in February, and then you get the week 1 results, and it feels like you have all the answers or none of the answers all at once. So I'm going to take some victory laps and then also take some big time L's, wave the flag immediately, reset expectations. That's what it's all about.
That's what this week's of content is all about too. Again, we'll have waivers on Monday night with Hayden and Jacob Sanderson. Tuesday, it is the flagship show of Stats versus Film, where we literally will go back and watch every single one of these games and have notes on every single one of these teams. So again, lock in, hit that subscribe button. Before we get going, I do want to shout out and salute John Daigle. As you can see, he is not here this week. He will not be with us this season. That's because Daigle wants to enjoy his Sundays instead of just taking a copious amount of notes. He's been doing the show with us for the last 3 years. It is not happening this year. We will have another guest next week on the program. So this week, Hayden and I combined watched 8 games plus the prime times, and we'll get into all of those. I felt it was very preseason week 4-ish. And so for that reason, we are going to extrapolate some things the rest of the way. But again, I do want to keep in mind that sometimes these teams are a bit of fool's gold after week 1. But we will first kick things off with the story of the weekend. And that became on Thursday and Friday, Christian McCaffrey, as the San Francisco 49ers beat the Seattle Seahawks 17-13.
I've never seen a healthier calf in my entire life. And
love it.
Kyle Shanahan has never either. He was the entire offense from about the second quarter on, and even before that, he was just getting the ball nonstop. He played most of the snaps. The only time he was basically coming off the field was after he was tired from picking up first downs. He caught the second most passes on the weeks of the week, regardless of position. He had some burst. He wasn't ripping off major explosive plays here, but he looked fine to me on tape. So he was very, very good. The usage is incredible. Whenever you get 10 targets and then 22 carries, it's going to be hard to not rank you as the RB1 overall for every week that he's healthy. So we have no promises on how long this is going to last. But right now, next week, he will have the highest projection in the pick'em lobby over on Underdog, especially if George Kittle is going to be out with a hamstring injury and then Juwan Jennings is going to miss time with a shoulder injury.
Talk to me about both those injuries, because I know George Kittle basically on the first drive had 4 receptions, 25 yards, and a score. Then we get the update from the Underdog NFL account that he's out for the rest of the game. And yeah, just at the wide receiver spot, there's a stark difference despite the ADPs being closed of Ricky Pearsall going 7 targets, 4 receptions, 108 yards. And then Juwan Jennings down below with 5 targets, 2 receptions, and 16 yards.
Yeah, Kittle was eating them alive early on and then pulled up lame with a hamstring issue, was immediately wearing a hat, no helmet in sight. Hamstring injuries, you take it a month and then you kind of give or take a couple weeks from there. So obviously George Kittle is a madman and maybe he can play through injuries, but this is a soft tissue injury. So not a good look there. And then with Juwan Jennings, he played most of the game here, wasn't all that involved because everything was going to Christian McCaffrey. There's a big reason for that. I'll get to that in a second. But he was on the sideline, and the report was that he could not even lift his shoulder. So both are going MRIs. This team does not have a lot of depth. We knew that about the offensive line this offseason. Now we can say that about the skill guys. Demarcus Robinson's not coming through the doors next week. Neither is Brandon Ayuk. I'm guessing that Kittle and Juwan Jennings are going to be out. It is Ricky Pearsall. It is Christian McCaffrey. And then this guy named Jake Tonges comes in and makes the game-winning touchdown at the very end of this. Yeah. A little bit of Brian Robinson, but more of a change of pace thing. It's Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, Christian McCaffrey. That's it.
No wide receiver caught a pass other than Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. I think I can call Jake Tonges a tight end. He wears number 88. He went up and climbed the ladder, like you said, on that touchdown for Tariq Woolen. That was a miserable drive from him. Ricky Pearsall caught a long 45-yarder, I believe, down the sideline on a double move. And Tariq Woolen misplayed that one. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of random tight ends. Luke Farrell also got a catch in this game. That is notable. Like you said, Demarcus Robinson is dealing with a suspension right now. He will come back if they need him in the starting lineup and fulfill that in a couple of weeks, but that is not immediate. So look, this is a team that we just talked about with the 49ers that, hey, everyone is healthy entering the season for the most part. And then 4 quarters in, more pieces fall and more pieces fall. Sure, it can be nice when things are funneled to just Ricky Pearsall and Christian McCaffrey. But at the same time, Hayden, that might equal more 17 and 21 point week games versus 28 point week games.
Yeah, that's going to be my final note with the 49ers. Trent Williams didn't look like himself. He was like kind of limping off the field at points of the season or at points of this game. The rest of the offensive line wasn't very good. Dominic Puni, another one, maybe their second best offensive lineman, he was on the ground for a portion of this game as well. So I think the offensive line has some problems. Brock Purdy was like trying to make these aggressive intermediate throws. There was a couple interceptions he had. He probably could have had a couple even more than that. So my big takeaway from this was the Seahawks defense. We knew it was going to be a problem. It is for sure a problem for fantasy
in a good way
purposes. Yes, like they're going to be very, very good. They could rush the passer, but when they're playing zone coverage, their speed and length at linebacker, like Ernest Jones made some plays. Reek Wallen, I don't know, had a couple coverage busts, but he also was closing in on things. They've got good safety play. It's going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. You felt how like condensed the field was going up against Seattle. So just like beware when you see Seattle on the menu. It's not going to be good.
Just again, shout out Chris McCaffrey, 22 carries, 69 yards on the air, 9 receptions, 73 yards on 10 freaking targets, the most on the team. That's an 18.7 half point PPR week. That's incredible stuff, man.
Really is. Really is. Last note for the 49ers. Kicker issues. Jake Moody missed one from about 30 yards away and then had another one blocked. It's a mess.
Why is Kyle Shanahan not going for it in those 4th and short situations when the kicker that they drafted last year and then so far this year is already having meltdowns in those spots?
Yeah, he said he's going to be back on the team, so they're doing the sunk cost fallacy. But he's in his head. You can see that dude was not breathing right at the end of it.
I did want to ask about Brian Robinson because he does get 9 carries here. He does get a reception. Is there anything you can add about the usage? Because they talked about, hey, we went out and got this guy because, seems he's going to give himself a breather a bit more often. Or was it, hey, Christian McCaffrey got 32 opportunities, so this other guy's obviously going to get 10?
Yeah. I mean, he can't touch the ball literally every single snap. So Brian Robinson had to get out there. I thought Christian McCaffrey looked more explosive than Brian Robinson on the limited samples here, as he should. But he's a change of pace. He's a good, like, kind of different style running back, but it doesn't really matter. Christian McCaffrey's going to be at the goal line in the pass game. There's not a situation that Christian McCaffrey's not going to be out there for.
San Francisco 49ers have the Saints and the Cardinals in their next 2 games. Again, we'll talk about those matchups this week. So if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. It's totally free to you. And our only goal is to help you win your fantasy leagues this season. That means we kick it on over to the Seattle Seahawks. 13 points in this game. I see Sam Darnold 16 of 23, 150 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But maybe the big talking point here is at the running back position. Zach Charbonnet, 12 carries, got himself a touchdown inside the 5-yard line. And Kenneth Walker III, 10 carries, 20 yards on top of that with 3 receptions.
Yeah, I mean, this is just like taking a huge L for right now. And Kenneth Walker played 40% of the snaps, did not have the goal line carry, did not play the 2-minute drill, and didn't even lead the team in touches. So, and then the other big thing was I didn't think that the 49ers I thought the 49ers defensive line kind of just kicked the butt of the Seahawks offensive line, which was like not the case in the preseason too. So obviously it's just a 1-week sample size. Nick Bosa and the boys over there, they got some talent over in San Francisco, obviously. But I mean, right now with Kenneth Walker, like I'll have the exact numbers on stats versus film, but this is a committee and maybe he plays more next week, but he was fully healthy going into this game, according to the injury reports. Didn't really hear anything from any of the sideline reports or anything like that. So not a good showing for Kenneth Walker. Obviously a huge win for Zach Charbonnet. So I think I'm going to have them pretty close in rankings next week. Yeah. I don't know how you cannot.
384 total yards for the 49ers compared to just 230 yards here for Seattle. Let's dive into that and maybe zoom out and ask a question. So we know that Kenneth Walker was off and on in terms of practices, would miss a few, then he would practice. During that time, Zach Charbonnet practiced the entire time. Could maybe that be the case here, that they feel comfortable with Zach Charbonnet and that has made him at least a primary runner for week 1? I do want to add that Zach Charbonnet's long run was for 7 yards. Ken Walker's long run was for 8 yards. Yeah. Anytime I had this game on and it would pop up on my feed, they'd be getting hit in the backfield just constantly.
Yes.
So that was always the issue that we've had with Seattle backs in the past. We thought that might change, and maybe it will. Just running to the 49ers, revamped defensive line could be an issue.
Yeah, yards before contact, Kenneth Walker 0.3 today, which would have been like dead last in the NFL. It's hard to do anything with that, but to me, it wasn't about the skill level. Charbonnet is good. Kenneth Walker is good. I think Kenneth Walker is a more explosive player, but Zach Charbonnet is a very good runner himself. To me, just the usage, like Kenneth Walker was not on the injury report. and he practiced enough this offseason. So like, I'm nervous about Kenneth Walker. Now, I'm not writing him off. He's way too good to be written off. But this is, if I had like a top 10 storyline coming out of fantasy week 1, Kenneth Walker stock down, like I think it would have to be one of them.
They get the Pittsburgh Steelers next, who just gave up a whole bunch of yards, which we'll talk about in a little bit with the New York Jets rushing game. We also need to talk about the passing game here for Seattle, because I mentioned they had just about 230 yards. More than half of that came from Jackson Smith and Jigba. 13 targets, 9 receptions, and 124 yards. The next closest pass catcher was Cooper Kupp with 2 catches for 15.
Yeah, I mean, he had 124 of the 150 passing yards. Seems pretty good. Target share numbers was above 50% as well for JSN. He was just lighting them up. You know, they were throwing him like kind of jump ball situations. He was winning down the sideline. Obviously, he has opportunities over the middle too. So this was just like very clearly he was like the entire focal point of the passing. I thought that Sam Darnold like played fine. There was not like anything glaring on either side. And I think sometimes that's what happens against San Francisco. If you're not throwing the ball to Fred Warner, I think that ends up being okay. At the very end of the game, they were marching down the field to try to win the game. And then here comes Nick Bosa, beats Abe Lucas for a strip sack. Not Sam Darnold's fault. Nick Bosa just looked like a monster out there. He's kind of been like putting out a little revenge tour. It's been a little bit since we've seen Nick Bosa at full health, like entering the season, no contract issues. Like he's ready to go get back in that defensive player of the year conversation again. He looked fantastic. So like nothing too glaring from Sam Darnold or the Seahawks here. If you can't block him up front though, that's going to be an issue for the entire year.
We know how the Saints offense looked last year with Clint Kubiak, where it was a lot of under center play action, deep bombs, all that type of stuff. That doesn't seem like it was the case here in week 1 for Seattle. Did you notice, and we'll talk about this in Stats versus Film, any wrinkles differently that you saw other than, hey, we got to feed JSN?
Yeah, no, it was a lot of JSN. They were still throwing the ball downfield. Like Sam Darnold's average up the target was almost at 9, which would be pretty high up there. That offense is at its best when they're like, you know, hear me out. When the run game's working, and then you can throw the play action over the top. Sorry for the boomer take, but the run game wasn't working. So, and they don't have like the complete assets out there. Torrey Horton was out there as the third guy, tight end rotation. But yeah, it was all JSN. Nothing else here. Cooper Kupp with 1 drop.
Looks like JSN had 2 fumbles, lost 1. I know that one that he had was a pretty pivotal situation moment. I do want to bring up Abe Lucas back at right tackle, new contract, and the biggest neck roll in the NFL at this moment. It looks glorious out there on the field. All right, let's go to Houston Texans at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams win this one 14-9, despite, you know, the Texans being projected for 20, the Rams being projected for 23. I don't think either of these teams played like a single down in preseason. And so this looked like preseason week 4. At times, neither team looked like they wanted to win this game, except for one man. The best player on the field was clearly, and I mean clearly, Puka Nacua. 11 targets, 10 catches, 130 yards. He took a huge shot to the face early on, massive bandage on the eye, bleeding from that area, returned to the field, had 2 more chunk gains of like 16 and 24 yards, another 2 or 3 big drillings to the face from defenders on those catches, another trip to the blue tent after that, and then again, just rolls out there for 130 yards on 10 catches. He is unbelievable. So powerful, chunk gain after chunk gain. The Rams have built their passing attack around him for a very reason. I do want to bring up that the 2 touchdowns were a Kyren Williams 4th and 1 after he got stuffed on 3rd and 1, or 2nd and 1, I should say. Matthew Stafford on 3rd and 1 got stuffed on a quarterback sneak, which that's a choice with your quarterback on a back injury, who also never sneaks it ever. And then Kyren Williams punches it in on the little pitch play to the outside on 4th and 1. And then Davis Allen on a 13-yard touchdown, which helped absolutely no one. I do want to bring up some really great throws from Matthew Stafford that included that Davis Allen touchdown and actually a Xavier Smith catch of 36 yards along the left sideline. Unfortunately for Houston, they really lacked explosiveness on their offense, and CJ Stroud was under pressure relentlessly. Spread the ball to everyone on the team. I mean, you see it's like Jane Higgins, 2 catches, Xavier Hutchinson, 2 catches, Dalton Schultz, 3 catches, Justin Watson, 2. Nico Collins only finished the day with 5 targets, 3 catches, and 25 yards. And the INT he had was Jane Higgins with both hands on it, who has great hands away from his frame, and Kobe Bryant just snags it away. Again, this offense in the first week of the season just kind of lacked juice, and they lost 2 offensive linemen as the game went on. Cam Robinson left with cramps, and then their starting center was carted off a bit later on too.
Yeah, I just got to start with just Puka, Devontae Adams, Matthew Stafford. So it sounded like Matthew Stafford, didn't seem like there's any limitations there. I mean, the fact that he was sneaking it and had some big corner throws, that looked good. But I was looking at the Puka stuff real quick. Only 23 routes. So 131 yards on 23 routes. 23
routes, just a cool 11 targets and 10 catches for 130. He was literally off and on every single time with this massive bandage on his eye. And then, I'm not kidding. Every single time he got tackled, some Texans player was diving straight for his helmet to the point where at the end he was just ducking and covering on all these middle of the field routes. Unreal player. And Matthew Stafford still got hit, and sacked 3 times in this game. Got up basically every single one, was making these sick throwaway passes and fadeaways and rollouts and all that type of stuff. So while Stafford's game, I'm not going to say declined last year, he had his moments of not seeing those same rifled, powerful passes over the middle of the field. That definitely showed up here in week 1 in a real positive way. This backfield, again, was all Kyren Williams, 18 carries, 66 yards, and that short yardage touchdown. Blake Corum didn't get in there. I believe Jarquez Hunter was inactive in this game. So you'll see, I think 1 full drive for Blake Corum, but once again, Kyren, at least in week 1, goes back to his 80-85% snap share.
Okay. CJ Stroud, how's the protection? Anything about the offensive line stand out aside from the injuries, just constantly under pressure?
Yep. Rough. And, his sacks were big sacks, 3 sacks for 37 yards. And so he didn't really give up on those plays, and they kept going back and back and back. And when there's one injury, they have to reshuffle. They move the right tackle to left tackle, and then the center went down on top of that. So again, they tried to get too deep of somewhat NFL talents. I will add the Rams pass rush is really good.
Yes, it is.
I mean, just really good. Defending rookie of the year, who's just a power rusher over your face every single time. Braden Fisk actually ended this game basically with a punch out, I think, on Dare Ogunbowale, who was getting it closer and closer to, I think, the 23 or 33 yard line in order for the Texans to potentially even take the lead. That basically ended it. The Nico Collins stuff, this wasn't a force fed thing. A lot of play callers, I'm not saying that necessarily Nico Collins is right next to Puka Nacua and NFL talent, but one side was able to get their guy on 27 routes, as you said, 10 targets. And then Nico Collins can only get 5 targets in this game when they drop back at least, 30 times.
Yeah, I think the answer to Christian Kirk behind them is nobody. It's Hutchinson. Watson is sneaking in there over the rookies too. I saw your tweet with Justin Watson. Was he a starter pretty much early on in the game?
Yeah, I mean, they did rotate, but the first series was Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, and Justin Watson. Watson had a drop later on. You saw Jalen Noel sprinkled in there. Jaden Higgins, like I said, had a pass go through his hands. But then you even have to throw the tight ends in there too, with Cade Stover and Dalton Schultz and so on and so forth.
It's a tryout in Houston right now for everybody aside from Stroud and Nico.
I was watching this and I was like, man, they really missed Tank Dell. They missed those outside breaking routes that you can count on, one of the best in the business, and CJ Stroud layering that throw consistently. Again, if Nico's only going to get 3 for 25, someone has to step up. And I don't know if they have a name that can really step up right now, where Tank Dell could have done that, 2 years ago. In the running game, it really was Nick Chubb, 13 carries, 60 yards. I mean, 4.6 yards per carry, not really anything to laugh at. And it was straight up the middle. He had a long gain of 13, some chunk runs of 8 and 9 on top of that. Behind him, Dameon Pierce got 3 carries for 5 yards. They would mix in Dare Ogunbowale, like I said. Even Woody Marks got 1 carry, or 3 carries, I should say. But moving forward, Nick Chubb is kind of the consistent element here. That takes us to Green Bay. Packers 27, Lions 13. Off to the races this Packers offense was, in comparison to a lot of other offenses out there that really struggled from the jump. How'd it look?
It was dominance. This is a changing of the guard in that division right now. If you're picking for the rest of the season, I don't know how you would pick the Lions over the Packers. The big standout to this game was just the dominance in the trenches for both sides of this. The Packers were running it very successfully with Josh Jacobs as a 96 percentile early down rushing success rate. for the Packers when they had the ball. And then when the Lions had the ball, it was miserable. Negative 0.28 EP per carry for the Lions at the 20th percentile. They got Jahmyr Gibbs a bunch of catches underneath, 10 catches for 31 yards, according to Field Yates. That's the fewest receiving yards in a game where a player had at least 10 catches in NFL history. And it felt like that. Jared Goff was under pressure a lot. It's like, if this game would have happened last year, it'd been like a top 4, top 5 highest pressure rate in the game. Micah Parsons was just dominating Penei Sewell. The defensive tackles, seriously. The defensive tackles, I mean, Kenny Clark, obviously they're missing him, but the other defensive tackles stepped up to the plate for Green Bay. So like, to me, this was just like a dominance in the trenches, which is like exactly not what you want to hear if you're Dan Campbell and the Lions. I feel like the Lions were missing a little bit of their special sauce in terms of the coordinators. You lose both of them. Obviously, part of the trenches that we're talking about is new guards, new centers as well. So you felt all of that, like all the biggest fears and all the narratives about the Lions this offseason, you felt in this game. And then all the optimism that we have about the Green Bay Packers, ascending offense with a couple new weapons, throwing Micah Parsons here. And man, this felt like the Packers were in their own clearly tier over the Detroit Lions. Obviously, it's only one game here, but that's what it felt like.
I know Jordan Love's touchdown throw to Tucker Kraft of 15 yards was a perfectly thrown needle over the middle of the field, over top of a defender. He hit Jaden Reed for a touchdown too. I cannot believe Jaden Reed is playing football. I mean, 5 targets, 3 catches, 45 yards, and a score after 5 days ago, we saw him basically unable to walk.
I know. That's crazy. Yeah. So this would be like another kind of waving the white flag temporarily is with Matthew Golden. Had a catch on a little switch release, which I liked, but he ran 58% of the routes. So that's just not enough. He lost snaps to Dontavian Wicks, obviously lost some snaps to Romeo Doubs. Jaden Reed was only out there in 3 wide receiver sets. You're not like necessarily worried about that. But if you're going to get some Malik Heath in there and stuff, he's just got to be so undeniably good that they say, Dontavian Wicks, thank you for your services, but you've been removed from the offense. Until that happens, he's going to be hard to trust. Like it's in the same situation that it is with Jaden Reed. And I think this team's going to be so dominant and so ground oriented that I think it's going to be very hard to trust any of these wide receivers to kind of stand out. It's like for right now, if I had to like pick somebody other than Josh Jacobs to start in fantasy, it would be Tucker Kraft. But even he's going to be a little bit hit and miss in terms of just like overall targets.
Okay, can I play devil's advocate here? Because again, this is just 1 week. I don't know how a 58% snap rate. I know that Matt LaFleur loves to rotate wide receivers and always has, but to me, they spent a first round pick on him that as the season goes along, especially for rookies that we see all the time, for him to grow into 70, 80%, like at the very least. You know, Dobbs does some good things, Wicks does some good things, and Jaden Reed is a very different type of player. But let's just say I would be stunned that the rest of the season if Matthew Golden only plays 58% of snaps. And on top of that, you know, they weren't pressed. They weren't pushed at all because, you know, Jordan Love only had 22 dropbacks in this game, basically.
Yeah, this is just like a 4 now. Like until proven otherwise, and he's out there for more snaps, he's going to be, I'm hoping that he has some explosive plays. He can break a long touchdown. It's just going to be harder to predict in the next couple weeks like that. I could, like going into this, I said, start Matthew Golden. I can't say that right now until proven otherwise.
It's basically one of those conversations of if it's Matthew Golden versus, I don't know, Jacoby Myers, you know that Jacoby Myers is going to be out there every single down. So go with the players who are good and dependable over someone like Matthew Golden. But this isn't, you know, week 17 or week 11 that we're talking about. It's just heading into week 2. I want to ask about the Lions. And again, I know you haven't had a chance to go back and watch this game from the eye in the sky and all that type of stuff. But you brought the special sauce. And that was always something that Ben Johnson could bring to the table, whether it be inside the red zone or to get a drive going or, you know, to force Jameson Williams the football, who only gets 5 targets, 4 receptions, and 23 yards in this game. Should the radar be up on John Morton after just 1 game as a play caller?
I mean, probably unfair, but I did feel like I felt it. There was a couple screens dialed up here, but nothing really crazy. I just think it goes back to the trenches. Like if Penei Sewell, who's considered one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL, is getting beaten like every 4th play by Micah Parsons, and then you have all of the interior new faces there, that's going to be concerning. So like, I think sums it up, Jared Goff here, 4.2 average depth of target in this game. So he drops back 44 times. It's not like he was taking a bunch of sacks. Obviously he took a couple here, but the ball was just being thrown underneath quickly because they had no other options. Like those big like crossing routes of JMO over the top, you didn't really see any of those. So the offensive line needs to get improved here quickly, because we know that Jared Goff's, his numbers historically, that's been better year after year. But historically, if the offensive line isn't good, he kind of takes that tier down. So yeah, every question that you had about the Lions, about the offseason, like you have more of them after this game.
And if we're talking about defenses, the next three here that the Lions are facing are the Bears, the Ravens, and the Browns over the next 3 weeks. Something that we talked about relentlessly heading into this game was the projected points, because the Lions scored 33 on average per game last year. This game, they were projected for 22. And really, like, other than garbage time, they scored 6 in this game. And the person to me that impacts the most is actually David Montgomery, because Dave Montgomery, and we love him, is a touchdown dependent player in terms of being a top 15 scoring running back or not. Whereas, you know, Jahmyr Gibbs can get 10 receptions in a game. If your team is going to score 20, 23, 24, 25 points versus, again, the 33, that is the difference of, you know, 3 touchdowns per game versus 4.5 touchdowns per game. And that will impact someone like DeMont more so than others.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to be taking a little haircut, though. Just, you know, if you're not scoring touchdowns, that means you're also not picking up as many first downs. So, like, yeah, this game was like completely over like pretty early on. So you still had 39 dropbacks. Jared Goff is like still capable. They're going to complete a lot of passes even when things aren't going wrong. Like the team's like at least that capable. So you're still going to have like the Jahmyr get 10 catches here. Sam Laporta pops up for 6 catches here. But that's in like the most negative game script situations ever. Like, I think the reality is we'll like look back and chop off 25% fantasy points per game for every single one of these guys. And then we'll see. I think that obviously, I think Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, like those two guys got to eat no matter what. They're the two best players on the team. But everybody else, I think, is going to take a little bit of a haircut here.
I do want to shout out Sam Laporta, because for a tight end, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 79 yards is nothing to sneeze at all. Very, very good stuff. And also shout out to our guy, Isaac Tesla.
Oh my God.
The garbage time touchdown. First catch in the NFL, might be catch of the season.
Yeah.
13 yards, one-handed, somehow gets a second foot in bounds. So if the offense is going to struggle, he's not really going to touch the field at all. But just a cool catch to make your mark in your NFL debut. That's for sure. 3
snaps on offense, and that was one of them. Let's keep that up.
Okay, since you talked about a disappointing team in the Lions, I'll bring it over to the Colts versus the Miami Dolphins. An absolute beatdown, as the Colts put 33 on this Dolphins defense, and the Dolphins offense can only put 8 on the board. I apologize to Colts fans and viewers of the show, but I do need to take a moment to open this conversation by talking about the Miami Dolphins, because the worst thing about the Dolphins is that 2 seasons ago, this would have been a matchup that we would prioritize and that we would believe that they would roll in, you know, September in a dome, questionable opposition in terms of defensive personnel and a new coordinator on top of that. Typically, this is an environment where they're at their best. And that is what stands out the most. The difference in this 2025 team versus, you know, 2022 and 2023, it is already so glaring. And it basically only took us 2.5 quarters to get there. This was, I mean, an absolute beatdown. And it goes directly to the quarterback position. And then on defense, if they didn't get pressure on Daniel Jones, then he had all the time in the world to pick them apart at multiple levels. Just quickly on the Dolphins offense, Tua on like the second or third play on offense, interception. He sailed a middle of the field throw to Tyreek Hill. They're already down 10-0 after the ensuing Colts drive. Then again, after just 2 plays, he tries to climb the pocket, what all quarterbacks do, and the ball just flies out of his hands versus an unblocked defender. And that goes over to the Indianapolis Colts. Tua blindside, unrecognized blitz, just demolished out there. Tyreek Hill, when they're 17-0 before halftime, is not happy on the sideline and letting all of his teammates know it's 20-0 at half by the Indianapolis Colts. And then Tua, to hopefully get something going in the second half, is picked off by Leatu Latu, dropping into coverage, an edge rusher over the middle of the field because Tua did not expect him to be there. 3rd turnover of the game. He ends it with just 114 yards, somehow gets a touchdown throw out of it. And that is to Devon Achane in what we call express garbage time.
Going into this, we just kept saying, if not now, then when? And it was not even close to happening. I mean, it was 53 minutes after the game had started, and I already saw Tyreek Hill having a meltdown on the sideline.
Yep.
So we made it 53 minutes there. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, like McDaniel's on the hot seat, Tyreek Hill and the trade markets here. Like, this thing could be a complete blow up. Yeah, and Indianapolis's defense is like pretty mediocre.
Like, Lou Anarumo will throw some funky shit at you,
Sure.
and Latu dropping into middle of the field exactly the window that Tua wants to throw it to is very indicative of that. But still, it's not like they are launched and vaulted in terms of personnel. And it's not like they are going on multiple years of great defenses. And you can only put 8 points on this team when it's basically a pick 'em or a 1.5 point spread. My thing is, if Mike McDaniel leaves or gets fired, I think Tua's going to look even worse than this.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I need to watch this game. It doesn't feel like he's like the problem here. It seems like they have a quarterback problem. They have an offensive line problem. And then I'm curious to see how engaged Tyreek Hill is. So yeah, I mean, the one saving grace right now to me is like Devon Achane played like every single snap until garbage time got here. Like he's still going to catch passes. Like he's going to be able to survive this, especially if Tyreek Hill gets traded and stuff. But yeah, I mean, all the biggest fears. I mean, apparently, like in the training camp practices, when they would go up against the other teams, like every other team would be like, "What the hell was that?" Like they were terrible. And in the preseason, that's what we saw. And then in this, we've seen that we haven't seen like any hope whatsoever from this team.
A lot of Dolphins fans tweeting through it, saying that it starts from the top down with ownership. We know about that. Then Chris Greer has just kind of brought everyone back every single year, not patched and fixed holes at all. Jalen Waddle on his second target goes down holding his right shoulder, does come back in the ball game, but he ends it with just 4 catches for 30 yards. You mentioned Achane. Yeah, 7 carries, 55 yards, does add that receiving touchdown on top of it. But I think James Daniels in like the second series went down with like an ankle or foot injury that he was carrying heading into this game too. Like they have to have him in order for this team to have success. The entire conversation over these last few weeks was the Dolphins aren't going to be a middle ground team. They're going to be one of the poles. Either they shock everyone and go back to the offenses they had in 2022 and 2023, or it's this. And I understand that week 1 can be a bit of a liar in terms of the entire 17 or 18 weeks of an NFL season, but this is worst case scenario for everything. And it already arrived immediately and abruptly after 2 quarters. Insane.
Okay. What about Indianapolis? Let's give them their credit.
I mean, this is exactly what Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard wanted when they went and pivoted on over to Daniel Jones. 22 of 29, 272 yards, 1 touchdown. Also had 2 short yardage rushing scores on top of this near the goal line. Because of those touchdowns near the goal line for him, Jonathan Taylor ends his day with just 18 carries and 71 yards. Tyler Warren was involved early and often. And I mean early and often. On that first drive, they were getting him down the rails along the sideline, down the seams on outside breaking routes. He finishes his day with 9 targets, 7 receptions, and 76 yards. He's going to be a top 5 scoring tight end this year. And on top of this, he played tons of snaps. They also got like 33 snaps for Mo Alley Cox. Another tight end played like 27 snaps as well. That means Josh Downs with just 2 for 12 played, I think, just 56% of routes. Now, again, we'll talk about this in stats versus film. To me, it's because of game script. They didn't have to push the pedal to the floor. They didn't have to play 3 wide receiver sets at all. And it was just, the game was over again at halftime. Mm-hmm. But again, my ranking of Tyler Warren ahead of all these pass catchers feels good. And if you were to take a wide receiver, Michael Pittman, it looked very Gardner Minshew-esque from 2 years ago in terms of, working in that short to intermediate game.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary of the situation. If Josh Downs is not going to be playing in 2 wide receiver sets yet, then it's just going to be a little bit harder for him to get there. And you're looking at looking at the RPO targets. There were 4 of them. 3 of them go to Michael Pittman. The other one goes to Tyler Warren there. So that's going to be a big part of this offense. So yeah, good to see like Michael Pittman healthy. Like he's been very good when he's healthy. Like before he had that back injury, if you look at his like last 17 games before that, he was like on pace for like 105 receptions. So like he's a good player that has had some serious injuries recently. And then obviously like Daniel Jones, if this offense is going to be functional, because I do trust Shane Steichen, like the play caller there, and if he's going to get a little bit of quarterback design stuff and he's not dealing with the injuries that he's had, I think that he's going to be a little bit more QB2-y than people are giving him credit for. Like he was like quarterback 25 in the rankings, even though the Colts were projected for a lot of points here. Obviously, you're not going to get the Miami Dolphins every week, but I think that in like super flex leagues, he's looking pretty good.
And you ranked him about 6 or 7 quarterback spots above that, I remember.
Too low.
Now, it's going to be an obvious statement, but if the Dolphins pass rush, which they've invested heavily into, does not get home, then you're going to get picked apart even by someone like Daniel Jones, which is extremely concerning. They got to him a couple times, but this Colts offensive line are not total studs across the board. They definitely have some of them, but they're starting a young player at center and right guard, and really nothing happened there. Storm Duck even left this game. Duck. So the worst position group in the NFL got even worse during this game. It's rough stuff.
Yeah, it really is. I saw that Jonathan Taylor played the first 43 snaps in a row, did not come off the field. So that's pretty cool too.
We just need the Colts to get pressed in a game before I think we get enough snap data to really extrapolate for the rest of the season. So look, Josh Downs has only played, I think, 12 snaps in 2 wide receiver sets or 1 wide receiver sets over the last couple of years. So you never expect him to be a more than 3 wide receiver set player. But again, they didn't even need to be in those groupings very often. All right, let's take it to the NFC South for you. Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road, win by a field goal, 23-20. Baker Mayfield's stat line looks fantastic, 17-32, but 3 touchdowns included here. Does that paint the picture of his day?
He was just a madman. He played like Baker Mayfield. There was definitely some opportunities where I think the Falcons could have had some turnovers here. Baker Mayfield was once again running like crazy. He actually led his team in rushing yards at 39. I don't know what he's done the last couple years, but he looks a little bit faster out there. He's ready to turn the ball over, but he made 2, elite throws. I cannot wait to show them on the all 22. Both of them to Emeka Egbuka, big post touchdowns where the ball was, you could not have placed it any better. So obviously credit to Emeka for getting open on those. But really it was just Baker Mayfield put it right on the money. So Emeka Egbuka didn't come off the field pretty much at all. Neither did Mike Evans. The targets went 8 for Mike Evans, 6 to Emeka Egbuka. They made it count. It was an efficient offense here. And this game, whenever they play each other, it can never be a normal game. So Younghoe Koo obviously misses the potential one to tie it, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers missed the extra point where that even allowed this thing to get there. So yeah, it was an exciting game, a little bit kind of sloppy on both sides here, but the best players in the game stepped up.
I didn't watch this game as closely as you did. I did on the corner of my eye, but I would even be harsher to Baker Mayfield than you are. I wouldn't be surprised if we look on PFF tomorrow and he has 4 or 5 turnover worthy plays. In the short moments that I watched, he literally had 2 passes that went through the hands of defensive backs. Now that's totally fine in a game like this because you win it, you get out, all that type of stuff. But that also speaks to the regression that could happen that did not happen in this game because we know he still escaped sacks somehow, some way, and then doesn't have the turnovers, even though the turnover worthy plays on there. So at some point, I don't want to be a bearer of bad news, but at some point this will probably catch up with him.
Well, he already last year had 16 interceptions or something. So he plays too well that you kind of have to take the L's when they kind of pop up, and he will have some pretty bad interceptions. But when you're that aggressive, and he has such high level arm talent. Some of these throws that he makes down the field are just exactly where you want to put the ball. You just kind of got to take some of the L's with the wins. And then on the Falcons defensive side, just never felt like it was totally pressure back there. Didn't really hear much from the first rounders up front. But the big news for the Falcons side of this, Drake London, my goodness, 15 targets here. So when Penix has been on the field with Drake London, it's just been peppering him. That's 8, 13, 18, and then 15 targets at the very end of the game. Does leave with a shoulder AC joint type of issue. So don't have all the details on what that means, but similar injury to what Darnell Mooney was dealing with. The last couple drive when Michael Penix was trying to get out there, he's throwing to Ray McLeod and a bunch of guys that should be backups, which allowed Kyle Pitts to have his 6th career game with 7+ receptions. I want to give Kyle Pitts some credit here. The numbers don't show it the explosive plays here. He looked healthier than I've seen him in a very, very long time. Just a little bit of the yards after the catchability. There's a couple plays just where he's like sliding in zone coverage, and he just like looked like a functional player out there. Obviously, he benefits if Drake London's going to miss some time here. But yeah, the Falcons dropped back a ton here, like 51 dropbacks. No receptions beyond 15 air yards. Everything was shallow, lots of Bijan Robinson, but Kyle Pitts, I thought, passed just the eye test, which I have not been able to say in a long time.
I also want to bring up Bijan Robinson's first touchdown, receiving 50 yards. He goes on for 6 catches, 100 yards in this game. Did have 12 carries for 24 that went absolutely nowhere.
They were great carries, I promise you. He was making everybody miss. Bijan Robinson was incredible today.
Big conversation heading into this game was Falcons right tackle spot. That's the blind side for Michael Penix. I only see 1 sack for 9 yards. Penix never gets sacked, by the way. That's just not something that he has done in his college career or now so in his NFL career. But did that right tackle spot flare up when it came to the running game at all?
Probably. I'd have to watch like independently on those, but they couldn't run the ball at all. Like they had a pretty even split. Algier and Bijan, that's 10 carries and 12 carries. Both of them picked up 24 yards. Michael Penix had the longest carry of the game. He actually got out there in space and scrambled a couple times in this one. But yeah, 51 dropbacks and then that's 22 running back carries. So this is a very pass-oriented offense. A lot of like more checkdowns in this one than what we're kind of used to with Michael Penix. But yeah, for the first play of the game, I think it was a slot play to Bijan Robinson. Then obviously he had that ball in the flats where he went crazy. So yeah, if we remove Drake London from this offense, like Kyle Pitts, Bijan, Darnell Mooney comes back before London, like these guys are going to get so much.
Are you that nervous about Drake London?
I don't know. Like we just too early to tell. They were trying to win the football game. He wasn't out there. So
yeah. I do just want to go back quickly to the Buccaneers. We brought up Bucky Irving's receiving work in the preseason, and that showed up with his receiving touchdown. It was only for 9 yards, but he had no reason to score that touchdown. I mean, that was so sick. In the flats, in open space, somehow beating defenders to the pylon and getting there. That was great stuff. Look, I think this is a point we should say that Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden, they went about half a round apart in a lot of drafts out there, but this is the difference. Like Emeka Egbuka out there all the time, getting 2 touchdowns. He's an every week start now versus we're still gathering information with Matthew Golden moving forward. Fair?
Yeah. And the latest on Chris Godwin is like they're hopeful it's week 5, but it might be week 6 or week 7. Like every single time I hear a report, it's like you add another week to it.
Cade Otton with a big fat 0.
He was out there. He played.
Okay. Interesting. Because I know if people punted tight end, they might have gone in his direction, and that didn't pay off at all there. Denver Broncos 20, Tennessee Titans 12. Another sloppy game offensively for both sides. In fact, in the first half, Hayden, both teams had 7 offensive drives apiece. The Broncos won this game, yet they ended it with 6 turnovers. 2 Bo Nix interceptions that he forced into tight coverage. 1 fumble that he had when moving a bit too much in the pocket and holding the football for too long. A Marvin Mims muff punt on top of that. And yet every time the Broncos were put into a tough spot defensively, they stepped up in a massive way. Just an example, one of those occasions after the muff punt, they were only up 13-12. The Titans got the ball on about the 22-yard line. On 2nd and 3rd down, they sacked Cam Ward. Long sacks to basically push them all the way back to the 50-yard line. So that went from almost a gimme 2-point lead for the Titans to then the Broncos getting another chance to return the punt and no points were added onto it. It was a bad Bo Nix game. Moving too much, kind of felt like the early games of last year where he didn't find like that Goldilocks zone. And quickly on the Broncos here, J.K. Dobbins got 16 carries, as you can see in your box score, for 63 yards and 2 catches, including a 19-yard run. Tyler Bidet kind of opened this game as the 3rd down passing down back early. But in the second half, RJ Harvey was actually the one that set up that J.K. Dobbins touchdown with a 50-yard explosive play directly up the middle. Excellent vision, weaved between these defenders, and again, set up the game-winning touchdown on top of everything. So that is exactly the type of carry that you need in order to gain more playing time as this goes along and to, at first, make it just a 2-person backfield. And for a while, it felt like the Broncos weren't getting anything going on the running game offensively, despite, how good this offensive line is. But that breakaway run and then the J.K. Dobbins one after that certainly changes things moving forward.
Yeah, we just need more consolidation of this offense. Like there's just a bunch of rotations kind of everywhere except for Cortland Sutton. So yeah, I think for now, J.K. Dobbins deserves a higher ranking than R.J. Harvey, but you got what you wanted if you drafted R.J. Harvey. You are obviously going to be closing that gap and having a 50-yard run inside zone, just huge cut up field. So that was good to see. Let's get rid of Tyler Bidet. Nobody wants Tyler Bidet. Let's keep it to R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins for now. But yeah, Bo Nix got to play better, man. Like that. There was definitely room for improvement on his tape from last year, throwing the ball over the middle, being more consistent with his decision making. And then he can get a little bit kind of crazy and chaotic in the pocket. So it sounded like we had a bunch of all of those issues once again.
Yeah, and then the other 2 turnovers I didn't even mention were turnovers on downs. One 4th and short quarterback sneak for him that he couldn't get a yard. And the other one, it's like 59 seconds to go on.
That was crazy.
4th and 6. I guess Sean Payton was feeling himself. Like last year, we got the 2 scissors concepts that, hit a bunch of chunk gains to Marvin Mims, for example, last year. Well, in this one, I mean, it was one of those passes where the ball is in the frame, but the field is not. He just threw it up and it just wasn't even close to Marvin Mims. Meanwhile, if you watch the dots,
Sutton.
and I don't know what the read is, Cortland Sutton is wide open.
I know.
Like wide open. So that's rough stuff from Bo Nix. And this interceptions, you'll watch them. Defensive backs just driving on it, some misplaced passes, some forcing it into tight windows that definitely don't need to be there. But Cortland Sutton is easily the one in this offense. 6 catches, 61 yards, 1 score. And after that, like you said, I think Evan Ingram left with a calf injury. Marvin Mims' 3 receptions were all screens, despite him playing more real wide receiver stuff. And then Troy Franklin was kind of winning in that slot role with 4 for 44. But they definitely spread the football around.
Yeah, just looking at the route participation, Marvin Mims not a full-time participant. And we got to start calling 6 for 61 and a touchdown to Cortland Sutton. I mean, that is
so true.
As automatic as it gets for that dude. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, 15 half PPR points or above that is locked and loaded for him. He's like anywhere from 9 to 15 to 18 every single week. Okay, on the Titans front, Cam Ward was up and down, which is exactly what you expect, and you could not drop really a more difficult first contest than this defense. He made some, and I mean sick throws, some fadeaways, one to Calvin Ridley off the left side on like a 2nd and 8. He loves to drift in the pocket, and I don't think he threw from a traditional arm angle the entire night. Everything was kind of like drop below his waist or at waist level, all this type of stuff. And that can be hit or miss. And then, as we talked about at Miami, when he takes a sack, the dude takes a sack. He doesn't want to let a play die. He wants to believe he can get away with it. And again, that took them out of certain points. But he also made some big time throws that were not caught. And the main culprit in those was Calvin Ridley. Like they were these seam benders over the middle of the field. And both of them just went right off his fingertips. And they were in pivotal situations. Like the last one was to drive to potentially send this to overtime. Another one would have, again, continued it for a potential touchdown as well. So Calvin Ridley finishes the day with 8 targets, but just 4 catches for 27. That should get better. And then the other headliner is in a backfield that doesn't have Tajay Spears. Tony Pollard just absolutely dominated. 18 carries, 60 yards, did have a bad fumble, but then he adds 1 catch for 29 yards. Actually, this team's leading receiver on top of it.
Yep. This is what you would fear if you're the Tennessee Titans, but the Broncos are going to do this on defense against good offenses. So this is like something where you file it away. You kind of expected all of the stuff. The Cam Ward stuff, I think what you're talking about is like complimentary that he can make all these type of throws from these arm angles, but also like derogatory where it's like he is so lackadaisical with his things that you're just going to have some games where they're flooding around. I mean, they average 2.4 yards per play here. So just like completely 2 different ends of the spectrum and just the depth of each one of the teams here. So I want to go back and watch this, but when you got Surtain on Calvin Ridley and then Calvin Ridley's dropping passes, I'm not surprised to see Cam Ward's dad having a meltdown in the stands. Did you see that? That was so good.
Just like the fantasy managers out there that played Calvin Ridley. 12 of 28, 112 yards, 0 touchdowns and interceptions, and 6 sacks taken. That looks terrible. And there were some really bad moments. But again, you also see some really, really good moments. He's fearless, man. And it'll just come a bad sack or a drop throw by someone else. He forgets about it and he goes on to the next drive and tries to rip it in there and repeat it all over again. I think at one point, though, the Titans had 131 penalty yards versus 135 yards on offense. Again, there was a time for them to return a punt after they just stopped the Broncos on like 3rd and 12. and then Jeffrey Simmons shoves a Broncos ball carrier, and then they get a 15-yard penalty and automatic first down. So like, this is still a young team, that a coach that we still don't know really his identity after year one and trying to get these things together. You hope it gets ironed out. But I mean, you go from the Broncos defense to next week against the Rams, who just destroyed CJ Stroud and that Texans offense this week too. So it's a rough go of it at the top here for Cam Ward.
Yep. Start Tony Pollard. I think next week, easier matchup, easy matchup, but an easier one for Calvin Ridley. He'll catch much of those passes.
He definitely will. And I do want to add that JC Latham left this game a bit later on with an injury, so hopefully he's going to be okay. Yikes. My guy, Oli Udoh from Elon, stepped in at right tackle.
Everyone that graduates from Elon works in football, I swear.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Okay, let's move on to the Washington Commanders making their year 2 debut with Jaden Daniels, a 21-6 victory over the New York Giants. Take it away.
Yep, this was a game about the trenches where I think that the Giants showed a lot of fight with their defensive line. I thought that there were some times where Jaden Daniels was a little bit flustered. Jaden Daniels nearly had a 69-yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin, who just missed out there. So Terry McLaurin didn't do a whole lot. But I think one of the reasons why he didn't do a whole lot was, to me, the player of the game here was Deebo Samuel. I mean, Deebo Samuel was just making a bunch of plays. You get an end-around touchdown, diving with some contact. There was like dig routes, like over the middle throws. And that was something that Tom Brady, who was much better on the mic, I thought, this week than he was last season.
Year 2 Brady bump.
Yeah, big breakout candidate, Tom Brady. But it was a point of emphasis for Jaden Daniels after watching his tape. He's just got to be getting to that second read over the middle. And I felt like there were more of those attempts this week. And actually a lot of them went to Deebo Samuel, who ended up with 10 targets to Terry McLaurin's 4. Now, it's not like full panic time for Terry McLaurin. He's going to be very volatile. Like, he's not a huge volume guy. He's going to run a lot of the clear out routes, a lot of alert routes, big post routes. I think it's going to be hard to predict, though. And I think that's going to be pretty frustrating. And if Deebo Samuel's as good and they're going to give him all the easy stuff, I think that's going to eat into Terry McLaurin. And like, I think starting even next week, I don't know how you can have these two guys in fantasy that far apart from each other. Like, Deebo is getting a lot of the fun stuff. And then the Terry McLaurin, so we're going to be kind of flipping coins. Like, is he going to have that 69-yard touchdown like he could have had this one, or is it going to go incomplete?
I've been a Deebo guy all summer long. It's so cool to see 10 targets, 7 receptions, 77 yards. And then the one rushing attempt that he has goes for a jet sweep for a 19-yard touchdown.
Yep.
Does he look like 90% back from a couple years ago?
Yeah. I thought he looked very good. I mean, he was making guys miss. And then he's more the intermediate stuff. Like, it was a while since we saw like some big, just some big boy routes down the field. And we definitely had a couple of them.
That adds so much juice to this team. And we'll go back and look at it in Stats versus Film, where Terry, for vast majority of last season, was locked into the left side, and they just kind of had a void on the right side of the field, and especially someone who could win after the catch on top of that. So Deebo coming in here and is a perfect fit if he still has some of that juice left with Cliff Kingsbury. I do want to add that Zach Ertz also had a touchdown here in the red zone. Again, we talked about in the Q&A live stream on Sunday morning that if you're just searching for this final tight end, if you're tight end 16, 17, 18, go with the team that's projected for the most points because they have the most red zone opportunities on top of it. Okay, we have to talk about the running back situation because I see Jaden Daniels, obviously 11 carries for 68 yards. Austin Eckler, 6 carries, 26. Jeremy McNichols, 4 for 25. Chris Rodriguez, inactive. And then popping up, Ja'Cory Bill Krosky Merritt, 10 carries, 82 yards, and a score.
Yeah, his first snap was in the second quarter, and then he just started to compile some good numbers. So down the end, there was maybe 8 yards out, he bounced it out correctly and then scored a touchdown. And then at the end of the game, he was just getting more usage. Austin Eckler still played more snaps than he did. Austin Eckler had a huge 3rd and 14 spin yards after the catch play, a very crucial play for them. So it's going to be a committee approach. We don't have the answer to who's going to be the actual goal line back, but the fact that Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt does score a touchdown in the red area accounts for something. And then Chris Rodriguez not being a part of the game plan because he doesn't play as many special team snaps to Jeremy McNichols is a big deal. So Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Austin Eckler, I think that we're going to have these guys pretty close in the flex rankings. And then we'll see if Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt has another 42-yard run, bounces it outside and shows a little bit of juice. We know that Austin Eckler is not going to do too much of that. So I think we kind of were expecting this kind of usage, but it was good to see Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt like pass the eye test.
For a back with size, I do think JCM is quite nimble in his cuts. I mean, that bounce to the outside was, I thought, really solid. And look, when you talk about 7th round rookies, that can be about earning trust early, but then your opportunity grows once you make the most of them. And already in week 1, getting 82 yards and a score, I mean, a long run of 42, I didn't even see that play. I need to go back and watch it. That's a big deal. Now, again, I don't think it's as simple as one guy, one running back is going to get 80% of the backfield touches here. They have constantly talked about that they love their running back room. And then on top of that, again, you always have a super mobile quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who is also going to take some red zone work and touchdown opportunities away from that. But again, there were 2 ends of the spectrum here when you were drafting Bill in your fantasy drafts. It was you can get him super late as a near final round pick, and then it got to like round 7, 8, 9, depending on your platform. But even that round 7, 8, 9 can pay off because it's a really good offense. And again, the opportunities can even grow from a numerical standpoint from here.
23 of 70 snaps for JCM. I think that's just going to go up, and up. And I think that eventually Jeremy McNichols, like his 13 snaps, it's not going to really matter on offense. You're going to phase him out. And then it's just Bill and Eckler. And I think we know who's got more rushing juice there. So yeah, definitely stock up for Bill. I think the Chris Rodriguez was inactive was a big part of that. And then he looked good here.
Let's talk about the New York Giants, because it only took 1 week for Brian Daboll to be asked if he's committing to Russell Wilson as his starter for week 2. And he failed to commit to him.
Yeah. He still said he has confidence in Russ and we have to do better around him, but did not say like he's for sure starting here. I'm guessing it's still going to be Russ for a little bit. The reality was no Andrew Thomas means you can't move the ball with this offensive line. So
the splits are horrible.
38% pressure rate against Russ in this one. Theo Johnson had a couple drops. Wandale had a drop. There's a couple near misses to Malik Neighbors. There's also a couple underthrows from Russ to Malik Neighbors. It was about halftime, and Malik Neighbors like getting double teamed, and the offense was just looking really bad. And Neighbors was like visibly very frustrated on the sideline to the point where like Daboll had to come over there and like they were kind of getting into it a little bit. So eventually that calmed down. We had like some more downfield opportunities from Malik Neighbors, which we didn't see at all last year. So there's still plenty of optimism there. In terms of the running backs, Tyrone Tracy was out there for 50 of 68 snaps. Cam Scatterbo came in there, had a huge blitz pickup, and then had a couple truck stick plays afterwards, but was very clearly way behind Tyrone Tracy for now. So Andrew Thomas, man, he had surgery. I think it was back in last October for a foot injury. The fact that he's not in the week 1 lineup has me a little bit concerned there. So it doesn't sound like he's like that far away, but it's been nearly a full year since he's had that surgery. And the big thing is they could not run the ball at all. So like Tracy was out there, but they were terrible. 9th percentile in EPA per early down run. And then when they got down to the red zone, it was like, you're not even going to try to run the ball. And this is like the Commanders got some guys up front for sure on their defensive line, plus Bobby Wagner. But this is not like one of the best defenses in the NFL. And like, if you can't run the ball and then you have like Russ trying to play hero ball, that's not the combination that Russ needs.
Yeah. I saw Russ do the hokey pokey a few times as Pat did, drop his eyes, spin around in the pocket. Again, it's on my radar that Brian Daboll is going to run a totally different offense once he puts Jackson Dart in there. So if he thinks that offense is going to potentially be more competitive, he's just going to flip over to that. Now, again, keep talking about it. And this is what I brought up with Russ. Like, this Giants schedule to open the season is absolutely miserable. Now they get the Cowboys next week, which is much different without Micah Parsons. Then after that's the Chiefs, then the Chargers, then the Saints, then the Eagles, then the Broncos, then the Eagles, then the 49ers, then the Bears, then the Packers. I mean, it's just one after the other after the other. So there is not going to be a right time to start Jackson Dart. And Brian Daboll is coaching for his job. It is that simple. So it's going to be sooner than later for me. And, you know, the Andrew Thomas stuff doesn't help it at all because the splits for him, it's even one of those games, Hayden, and I didn't get to watch it fully, but it's even a prayer that we got Malik Neighbors 71 yards in this game.
Yeah, I mean, he's always going to get 71 yards. You know, that's just, he's getting 5 for 71.
It's so much more difficult, it feels like, when we don't have Andrew Thomas.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is what it was down the stretch last year. There's a couple of downfield opportunities that were like near like big plays from Malik Neighbors. So this was like almost a game where he could have finished as a wide receiver 1 this week. So like not panicked about Malik Neighbors whatsoever here. And Russ will play better once Andrew Thomas gets back in there. If I was running this organization, and I love Jackson Dart more than anybody, I'm not putting him out there until Andrew Thomas is out there. I mean, it's just a bad recipe right now. So until that happens, I think it's just going to be Russ, and let's see if he can connect on his downfield passes next week.
Final question. I understand game script was totally out of whack, but is there anything we can read into the backfield here with Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary, and Cam Scatterbo?
Tracy was out there for all the important stuff. I thought Cam Scatterbo provided some juice, but he played 8 snaps. So it's all Tyrone Tracy. Do you like the Giants starting running backs in fantasy? That's the test that you're putting out there. So I think he's a flex right now. But I thought Cam Scatterbo did as much as you can with 8 snaps.
Okay, let's go to Jacksonville. Liam Cohen's debut, Travis Hunter's debut, and they won 26-10 over the Carolina Panthers. Trevor Lawrence for the day, 19 of 31, 178 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I'll get to the passing game in a moment, but what we always talked about with Liam Cohen coming over here is bring the running system. And while he didn't bring the Bucs offensive line with him, the Jacksonville Jaguars rushing game, 32 carries for 200 yards and 1 touchdown against a Panthers defensive line unit that they spent the entire offseason and free agency money investing in. Maybe that investment is skeptical when you get trounced by 6.3 yards per carry on average. The big play here was Travis Etienne's 71-yard run. It was like exactly that action that you see up front with pullers and blocking down and all that stuff. And Travis Etienne had some, sweet cuts and patience at the line of scrimmage. And then the Panthers linebackers might be one of the worst units in the NFL. Yeah. Their safeties and linebackers literally were running in the opposite direction as he was running down the field. So while he didn't take it to the house, 71 yards for Travis Etienne there is massive. All 4 of these running backs played. Tank Bigsby mixed in there a little bit later on. Bashal Tutin mixed in there a little bit later on. The one who actually was in there in like a pure passing down situation early on was LaQuint Allen, the 6th rounder, because we know he's a good pass protector and receiver. But make no mistake, like this is Travis Etienne. He had much better vision this week than he did last season. And while you're not going to face the Panthers every week and Tershawn Wharton goes down with an injury and all this type of stuff, this could not have gone better for Travis Etienne players this week.
Yeah, he's just the guy that they trust the most right now. And I think he's a good fit for the offense. Liam Cohen was like talking Travis Etienne up like a couple days ago, just talking about how much he's kind of evolved and how he's a good fit for the offense. And then John Shipley, who covers Jacksonville, his like bold prediction going into this was it's going to be Travis Etienne. And it was. I think like a couple takeaways for this backfield. Bashal Tutin played 4 snaps. So he played fewer snaps than LaQuint Allen. Like you would figure that maybe he would be some of the change of pace pass game stuff. Not that they needed to pass all that much here, but it was LaQuint Allen out there. The Tank Bigsby stuff, I think like this one, I think we can get a trade here. I think that this is a situation where it's kind of like what exactly you're going to do here if LaQuint Allen's going to be playing passing situations. Eventually, Tutin's probably going to be involved in this offense more than 4 snaps, and if they trust Travis Etienne. So I just wanted to kind of pay attention to for right now. But it was like good that Travis Etienne showed a little bit of patience and then actually showed some burst after last year dealing with some injuries and just not looking like an explosive rusher at all.
And actually, Brian Thomas Jr.'s touchdown was a rushing score, again, off of like an orbit motion-ish type thing, where he gets the football on a jet sweep and runs it in from 9 yards out. Okay, to the receiving game, Travis Hunter played the vast majority of the snaps on offense. I think maybe 2 or 3 on defense, and that was it. On offense, and he was mainly the slot player for this team. Some manufactured screens, some stuff over the middle. Nothing out of the ordinary in terms of negative stuff here. They just were really not pushed offensively. And while Trevor Lawrence, doesn't have many negatives here, the interception that he threw to JC Horn was actually an unbelievable play by JC. Underlying stuff, he just sailed some passes once again. That will get better, and it's fine to do that. Hopefully, when you put up 26 and win a game here. But I am enthused by Travis Hunter. At the same time, I also want to mention that De'Ami Brown is going to be a thing on this offense. Early 4th down conversion on a jet sweep. He blocked his ass off on the outside on a bunch of these long runs for Travis Etienne. Had some other manufactured things as well. So this isn't just like a 2-person wide receiver room, which we do think that's going to be Brian Thomas Jr., who I think had a drop and Travis Hunter as the primaries. They're going to run a whole bunch of 11 personnel on top of this, but De'Ami Brown is going to be out there as almost an every down player.
Yeah, just looking at the Travis Hunter stuff, we have our answer. Travis Hunter played almost every single snap in 11 personnel and played 0 snaps in non-11 personnel stuff. So he's pretty much used as a slot wide receiver who's going to get funneled the ball. They led the team in targets here, right? So he's a explosive slot wide receiver, and they're going to use a lot of 3 wide receiver sets because they're looking for other tight ends they can get the ball to. I did see Brenton Strange pop up here for a decent game, but yeah, we have a full-time player in 11 personnel, and then he's not out there in 2 wide receiver sets yet.
Yeah, the touchdown pass went to Hunter Long on a wide open rollout. And you mentioned it, Brenton Strange, I think after 2 series, had 2 catches for about 34 yards. And again, that is magnifying glass the Panthers linebacker core because they are just horrific.
Real quick on the Travis Hunter stuff. I would say this is a win. Like, you got out there.
8 targets, man.
8 targets, got 6 passes. Is 11 personnel, full-time player, and then not playing in 2 wide receiver sets. Is that like wide receiver 3 type of stuff in fantasy? I think like that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think I would like to see a little bit more to kind of graduate him up from there and see a couple plays actually come down. But I would say that he's like in the wide receiver 3-4. We got so many sit-start questions on Travis Hunter. I think that we should continue to get those because that's kind of like the border that he's on right now.
Fair. Also, again, against a better opponent, the Jaguars have to push the pedal down a bit more often. They would run more 11 personnel. Again, let's remember that Liam Cohen and the Bucs offense ran 3 wide receiver sets at the 8th highest rate last season. And that was despite all of the wide receiver injuries that they had. I remember multiple weeks where Cade Otton was his team's primary pass catcher. So they're going to live out of that personnel, that's for sure. And yeah, when he's in there, they design plays for him to get the football in terms of screens, in terms of short passes, all that type of stuff. So this was a win for me from a volume standpoint.
Yes.
I think there is going to be dependable stuff on a weekly basis. I mean, again, Brian Thomas Jr., 7 targets, only caught 1 for 11 yards. Accuracy problems kind of around the board here. Speaking of, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, 18 of 35, 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions on top of this. The Panthers have no juice. They had a bad end to their preseason, didn't play in preseason week 3. And then it just looked like they were totally unprepared for this game and they were not ready. The center quarterback exchange, high snaps all over the place. And then Bryce Young, the early interception to Xavier Legette was actually an awesome defensive play that he drove through another wide receiver and broke it up and knocked it up in the air. And that one was intercepted. The last one went through Rico Dowdle's hands, and then he also had a fumble on top of this. But the big winner is Tedero McMillan on this team in terms of, I know it only looks like 9 targets, 5 receptions, 68 yards. But when he got isolated coverage one-on-one, he was looking for T-Mac down the field. And in fact, you can almost add like 30 yards onto this because it was one of those weird plays, Hayden, where there was pass interference down the field. And then it was debatable if there wasn't a penalty, it would have gone to a review if T-Mac actually caught this pass one-handed down the field. But because there was a penalty, they just didn't even review it. It kind of looked like he did catch it. So a good day for Tedero McMillan, and then Chuba Hubbard gets in the end zone for a 27-yard receiving touchdown.
Yeah, I think T-Mac right now is like so clearly their best player on offense right now, and none of the other guys are going to step up to the plate. Like Hunter Renfrow, like no juice, like you said, 6 targets for 11 yards. Xavier Legette, I saw him step out of bounds on a play near the sideline. Very Jonathan Mingo coded there. So we'll see. Chuba Hubbard, you got a lot of touches. Like in this one, you're getting the game script goes against him. He still gets 16 carries. He still gets 5 targets in this one.
And it's a weird game because early on, the Jaguars had trouble stopping the run. They were just picking up, though, Panthers chunks of 4, 5, 6, 7. And then there was an hour plus weather delay in this game. And as soon as they came out of the weather delay, it like flipped. The Panthers then couldn't stop the run. And then the Jaguars were able to shut them down there. It was a bad Bryce Young game. But at the same time, it was also a bad game all around. Like you mentioned, Xavier Legette not getting 2 feet in bounds. Hunter Renfrow didn't come up with a difficult catch over the middle that like Jalen Coker would have, you know, and then Jatavian Sanders had those like climb the ladder catches last year, and he had one of those opportunities in this game that he didn't. So this is becoming a theme for the Panthers. I mean, last season, we know in the first 2 weeks, they just looked totally unprepared. then things got going actually against the Arizona Cardinals, who they play next week. Week 2, they got to look a whole lot better than this, or else like the thing with the Panthers though is nothing was creative or manufactured at all. And that is quite concerning to like be able to click gears.
Bryce's just play style is it's going to be very boom bust. Like he throws deep passes to the sideline and then scrambles. We know that those two things are like usually effective, but they can go away, especially if you don't have your left tackle out there. The ball was going into Jacksonville's hands way too many times for my like that. He's lucky. I'm sure he probably saw it, the defensive holding at the end. But if that penalty did not exist, that would have been one of the worst pick sixes I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch that because I wonder if it was the primary to Hunter Renfrow that got held, and then it's just like
you're just like, all right, fuck it.
Okay. I also had eyes because of that weather delay on the Raiders beating the Patriots 20-13. So let's talk about that because there's a whole bunch of conversations that we can have. I know you're going to pull up the snap data here, but this is a great win for the Raiders. Something that I discussed heading into this game was this wasn't your normal, hey, totally new regime and new quarterback, because you bring in Pete Carroll, you bring in Chip Kelly, who has NFL experience, and you bring in Geno Smith on top of it. It definitely wasn't clean. I mean, he was sacked 4 times, 29 yards, through an interception that he probably wanted back immediately. But that's what you get with Geno, who goes also throwing 362 yards. Ashton Jeanty, 19 carries, 38. But the big conversation here, Hayden, is Brock Bowers for multiple reasons, right?
Yeah.
What was his snap count in the first half? It wasn't good.
It was wild. He played like 2 of the first 8 snaps. He was playing like on maybe like 4 out of 12, 1 tight end sets in the first half. And then in the second half, they're like, let's get Brock Bowers back on the field. And it started to work until he got injured. But it was the preseason usage lasted in the first half. And then after the game, Pete Carroll said that Michael Mayer is not a backup tight end. He is a tight end 1 in this league. So like some of the narratives came true. I think everyone can kind of point to like what side that they're on here. At the end of the day, Brock Bowers got the ball every single snap that he was out there, and it was for huge chunk gains. So he's still good.
It was funny seeing some tweets like, oh, Brock Bowers isn't playing enough. And then I'm watching the game and the dude has 8 targets, 5 receptions, and 103 yards. And then I'm glad it flipped because then this doesn't have to become like a big deal. He's the best player on this offense, you know? Like to me, that means that he's just going to be highly productive, whether he's on the field for 90% of snaps or 70% of snaps or whatever that is. I was quite nervous about the injury because the gait at the end looked quite bad. It sounded like, according to Tom Pelissero, who just bumped knees with someone, and he's going to be totally fine moving forward. But Brock Bowers was still trying to moss dudes, get down the field, big plays. And that is just going to be accentuated even more with Geno Smith versus, Aiden O'Connell last season.
Yeah, I think that with the Brock Bowers stuff, ultimately it's not going to really matter at all. I do think that he's not going to play all the 1 tight end snaps. We're just going to have to accept that.
But that's so different than like Don Kincaid, for example, who is not a target earner or overly athletic in comparison to Brock Bowers and like a big play guy. It's just different.
For sure. And hopefully that knee injury was like not like a PCL injury and he just like banged knees, but it did look a little bit funky to me, but it doesn't sound like overly long-term there. I did have to say this with the Geno. Looking at the pressure numbers, the Patriots had a 40% pressure rate on Geno Smith and he still lit him up. Like you guys just watch Geno Smith for real. Like you guys will actually appreciate how good of a quarterback and how much of an understanding he has. Like to be under that much pressure and still have the numbers that he did is like really awesome to see. So I cannot wait to watch what this Chip Kelly offense looked like. And then my question to you, the Jacoby Myers numbers since the Devontae Adams trade, he's produced as like a top 20 fantasy wide receiver. He'll be wide receiver 42 in consensus rankings like he always is once again. At what point do we have to give in and be like, he's a good player. He got a quarterback upgrade. He's out there all the time. And for the last like 15 weeks, he's been very, very, very good in fantasy football.
Yeah, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 97 yards here for Jacoby Myers. He and Cortland Sutton are just like the vanilla, boring veteran wide receivers, but automatic every single week. Ashton Jeanty had no room to run. 19 carries for 38 yards. And then in the receiving game, they get him going for just 2 catches for 2, but he did get a short yardage touchdown on top of that. Again, notable that Raheem Mostert was the one that was inactive in this game, and Zamir White as the backup, like barely got anything.
Ashton Jeanty, negative yards before contact today.
There you go. So again, this Patriots team has some talent up front. We know Christian Barmore and Keon White, and they've obviously paid Williams a whole bunch of money. So maybe this is something that is notable moving forward with him not getting a lot of room to run, or maybe this is just like the Patriots defense actually being decent under Mike Vrabel in terms of their fronts and everything like that, even without Christian Gonzalez in the back. Okay. On the Patriots end, Drake May has to have some responsibility for this. He was not accurate. It's that simple. The placement was off, sailed too many passes. Still, he's fun to watch. He's electric. He scrambles 4 times for 11 yards, but having to drop back over 40 times, 50 times even, 50 times in this game. And then that equaling, 287 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I think it's going to be that way because even the pressure numbers probably on his end were quite high. Will Campbell had an up and down day, both with penalties and pressures and all that type of stuff. So we might have another season of, hey, the surrounding talent needs to be elevated here for Drake May.
Definitely. I think also just like you said, Drake May, he's an in developmental quarterback. Like there's flashes last year. He still made some pretty bad decisions last year. He still sprayed the football. And at the same time, this was, I think, his 40th start since high school. Like he didn't play that much in college. Like this is not the Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels situation. He's very young. He played half the season this last year. He needs work. He sprays the ball. He makes some bad decisions. And at the same time, he's still very fun to watch. Like he got 46 pass attempts in this one. The team carried the ball 18 times. So the Patriots have trust in him. He's going to need time. So like, I think crowning him, maybe it was a little bit premature here, but it's also the first game of the season. But man, like the Raiders defense stinks. Like to only put up 13 points at home was pretty frightening.
Going to talk about Trevon Henderson here. He led the team in rushing yards, but that was only 27. And then he also tied for the most receptions at 6, but that only equaled 24 yards. Every time I saw him, it wasn't second level. It wasn't third level. It was just getting hit right at the line of scrimmage constantly. He broke a few of those tackles, but we never got to see him, run at full speed or open that gate and get downfield. So hopefully that happens in the future. But again, this is the Raiders that we're talking about. But at least, again, 12 touches or 11 touches, I should say, in comparison to the other backs on the team. That is a positive, and they are going to feature him in the passing game. That's for sure.
Definitely. So he played 35% of the snaps. So he was out there for 25 snaps, got the ball about on half of them. So he's like on a per snap basis is going to look good. He's going to have some explosive plays. He's going to be one of the guys that's going to be very hard for me to do in rankings because like that's just 25 snaps is like not enough, period. And especially in an offense that is going to be bottom half in the league. But he also is going to get the ball whenever he's out there and could rip off a long one. So he's going to be tough for me to rank.
I would not be surprised if Kayshon Boutte's name pops up in Jacob Sanderson's waiver video on Monday night. Our buddy Nick Rudman over at Underdog was talking about Kayshon Boutte all preseason, saying he's going to be a starting receiver, maybe hit 900 yards receiving. And then again, kicking that off with the most targets, the most receptions, and the most yards immediately. Not a bad prediction.
Yeah, that's a great call by our boss, big Nick Rudman over there. Steph Diggs, third in wide receiver snaps. Wouldn't have expected that. It is his first game back from a torn ACL, but he was out there practicing since that infamous Memorial Day. So yeah, still got 7 targets, 6 catches for 57. So that's nothing to sneeze at. But 37 to 54 routes.
All right, before we finish what we're looking forward to rewatching from Sunday's games, let's rewind back to the 2 primetime games on Thursday and Friday because we watched those in full. Thursday night, as you well know, Philadelphia Eagles 24, Dallas Cowboys 20. Your big takeaway from this game was what?
Just Jalen Hurts looked a lot quicker, and the offensive line was still really good, but I thought Jalen Hurts as a scrambler was fantastic. The Dallas Cowboys, I'm not sure how many times we're ever going to say this, played 100% of their snaps in zone coverage. 100%. So if you're looking at the A.J. Brown numbers, and you're like, man, what the hell was going on out there? They were just like making sure he was not going to go over the top. I didn't think that A.J. Brown looked quite like himself. Like I thought that he kind of was making some rounded turns. Like after he caught that pass at the very end of the game, was kind of just like slowing up instantly. So maybe there's a little bit of hamstring kind of thing going on over there. But Jalen Hurts, I thought actually played, after watching it on the All-22, a pretty solid game. Like threw the ball out to the flats, threw to Dallas Goedert a bunch, threw to Saquon a couple times, and then hit that big post route over the top. But I thought the big takeaway was just if the Eagles defense isn't quite as good as it was last year, I thought we saw a little bit of warts there. And Jalen Hurts is not playing through injuries right now. He's going to scramble like this. Jalen Hurts is going to be right there with like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Like he's not like the bottom half of this like elite quarterback one conversation. I think that he's like right in there with the top guys.
The scrambling is the number one takeaway because, at times last year and when he gets injured, he kind of becomes a power rusher, almost running through players. This one, and maybe it was just watching Jack Sanborn try to tackle him. Dude. He was just evading him at the second level constantly. And, there were plenty of plays where Cowboys had decent coverage and bracketing certain players, but their linebackers would be out of position or backs turned the quarterback.
Yep.
And Jalen Hurts just knew that the game slowed down for him at those times and on those snaps, and then would scramble for a first down. So, yeah, the passing chart, it was everything 10 yards and in, other than that deep post down the field to Jahan Dotson. We'll get more receiving stuff. And I actually do want to bring up Dallas Goedert's name. I shouted him out, I think, on the tight end ranking show as someone who could see more volume than people were expecting. Now, that was to the detriment, like you said, of Devontae Smith with 3 receptions, and A.J. Brown didn't get his one until very, very late on. But yeah, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to play quarterback like everyone else plays quarterback.
And he knows it.
Yeah, and he just does it differently. Now,
yep.
Again, maybe Patullo, who knows about these route concepts that he had in week 1 versus what Kellen Moore was doing last year, and if he's as good of a play caller as Kellen Moore. But if we get this nimble of a Jalen Hurts, and like you're saying, the rushing points on top of it, then, in Fantasyland, that's going to be amazing stuff.
Yeah, I think with the Dallas Goedert, if you're facing quarters and then cover 3, you just kind of hit the underneath zone stuff. And that's just playing smart, conservative football. And I think Jalen Hurts trying to play conservative football because he knows that the team's so good. If he's not turning the ball over, it's hard to beat. The Eagles, even if he doesn't have an A+ game, I thought he looked pretty good there. So I think there's reasons why Goddard got there schematically and why A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But don't be coming at me if you drafted A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and they have some stinkers. You signed up for this. They're going to have some weeks where they're
big weeks,
wide receiver 5, and then they're going to come back and they were the best wide receiver on the week. So you signed up for this, get used to it.
And when they're favored by 8 points in a game, that the volume is probably going to be low and they have to be hyper efficient, which they can be hyper efficient. Mm-hmm. And especially against man coverage, where A.J. Brown was otherworldly last year. Guess what? In this game, there was 0 man coverage. Zero.
Literally 0. That's crazy. 0.
Yes. Okay. On the opposite end, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys because, and I appreciate everyone who tunes into this. I will say, immediately after one game or even heck 1 quarter, getting messages from people saying, I can't believe you told me to draft player X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Again, you pick the players, you click the buttons, we give advice. Of course, the players who I am advocating for, I also drafted in all these leagues. So the Christian McCaffrey feedback that I got, should stay patient. And I'll add that with George Pickens here, stay patient. And hopefully if you drafted George Pickens, you also tune into the wide receiver show that we did ahead of the week, where we pointed out that, hey, the outside corners, and especially facing off against Quinyon Mitchell, was going to be difficult against a Vic Fangio defense that prevents big plays. And George Pickens was brought onto this team to be a sideline presence and winning 15, 20 yards down the field. And this is about the worst matchup that you could draw for that in week 1.
Yeah, and on top of that, defensive pass interference for 37 yards, that was nearly a touchdown. Something I did get kind of wrong, though, Quinyon Mitchell did travel with George Pickens in this one for the first half. And then they said, we can't do that because CeeDee Lamb was just picking up first down after first down. So one of my takeaways from this game was Eagles cornerback 2 situation, very much a find out, target that player. So obviously Cooper DeJean's going to be very good in the slot. They have Quinyon Mitchell, who's very good. That other guy,
Adoree Jackson,
be the target.
Your guy.
It's
fight on.
Hey. I was in class with him.
You might not welcome back to campus anymore.
I was literally in the same class with Mr. Adoree Jackson. But it's a problem out there. So in the second half, George Pickens had a couple opportunities, but in the first half, CeeDee Lamb was just completely balling out there. I could not explain the drops, but I will say this. CeeDee Lamb had 18.8 expected fantasy points. Those are half PPR points. That would have been the wide receiver 1 overall. And he's a good football player. And Dak Prescott looked good. Last year when I watched Dak Prescott, was not a huge fan of what was going on out there. This year he looked in command and was throwing the ball down the field very well. I think there's a chance that CeeDee Lamb can finish as the wide receiver 1 overall this season, despite all the drops.
I'm with you. Some real tough, tight window throws that Dak tried to get his wide receivers to make. Those are going to be hit or miss because of big hits over the middle of the field, right? And then CeeDee's going to catch those passes more often than not. So I also want to bring up Javonte Williams here.
Oh, yeah.
Because we asked questions all offseason of who's going to be the Cowboys lead runner Jaden Blue was inactive for this game. And then Javonte Williams, who had 4 total touchdowns last year, in week 1 gets 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, 2 goal line touchdowns. So like ran pure with how just the situations went out, but ran, I thought, very physical. I thought he looked a little bit better than he did this past season. Miles Sanders, pros and cons. He had one of the worst bounces to the outside I've ever seen. He also got hawked by Zach Bond, but also on a chunk gain, and then he had a fumble. So Miles Sanders did not play very well in the totality of this. The good news for the Cowboys is apparently they're getting a Devon Achane level talent when Jaden Blue gets activated, because every single comment I caught about the Jaden Blue healthy scratch was he's Devon Achane. I think there's probably more a band of Candas than Achanes, but we'll see how this one plays out.
By the way, I do appreciate everyone who watches our videos and comments. Just, we will rewatch all these games and all the tape and adjust our opinions on top of that. It's just, it's 1 week out of 17. So
especially with Pickens, like Pickens is going to go like this the whole year.
I agree. Okay, let's go to Friday. Los Angeles Chargers in Brazil, 27. Kansas City Chiefs, 21. Let's focus first on the Chiefs. We knew that Rashee Rice was going to miss 6 weeks with a suspension. We did not know on the second or third snap of the game, Travis Kelce would friendly fire Xavier Worthy and dislocate his shoulder on a drag/crossing route. He's still getting a second opinion. It sounds like surgery is possible, but more likely Xavier Worthy is going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. If he gets surgery, then that's the vast majority of the season, if not the entire thing. And that is very notable, as the broadcast pointed out, that Xavier Worthy was going to be the focal point of this passing game. And you can tell when Hollywood Brown goes out there for 16 targets, 10 receptions, and 99 yards.
Yeah, wild stuff there. Yeah, really unfortunate with the Worthy stuff. I'm hoping if that's only a month or 2, but man, like this was when he was going to go crazy without Rashee Rice. So the Chiefs takeaways, the offensive line was not nearly as good as it was hyped in the preseason and the training camp. There's obviously some good moments there, but also Josh Simmons and Juwan Taylor, these snaps, the penalties and stuff, it's really bad out there. It's really hurting them. So yeah, Mahomes missed that first deep shot, barely kind of got hit as he threw on the second one, then hit on 2 deep shots down late in the game. 2 of the most incredible throws. Like that last one to Hollywood down the field. Unreal play. So I thought Mahomes looked amazing. He's going to scramble a lot out of necessity. Like obviously we can't bank on Travis Kelce being the same level player. They didn't really get anything going on the ground once again. And they're throwing the ball to Tyquan Thornton and Juju and these level guys. So he's going to go full Hayden, scramble.
Like, I understand that the whole offseason was about getting the deep ball back. I think that's much more difficult if Xavier Worthy's not out there, you know?
Agreed.
And so you're having to rely on Tyquan Thornton and then an immediate broken play to Hollywood Brown and being parallel to the line of scrimmage and making that throw over again. You just can't.
Ridiculous.
I really think if Xavier Worthy's out for 6 games, and especially when Rashee Rice comes back, this offense is kind of going to go back to what we got over the last couple of seasons, which is condensed, short stuff, intermediate, and maybe 1 or 2 more shots down the field. But again, that's much different without Xavier Worthy out there.
Yeah, the rates of the downfield shots it was night and day last week versus the previous season. And at least Tyquan Thornton could like really run, and Hollywood Brown out there could really run as well. So I think we're going to see it. It's going to be successful. I mean, look at the guys I'm naming here that he's throwing the ball to. It's going to be, he's going to have to go fully MVP level Mahomes for this team to have a chance. I think the reality is Chris Jones was dominant. They have a couple other guys that are pretty good, like the Trent McDuffie tier. And then the rest of the offense, it's like, and the rest of the defense, it's like really not that great. Right? Kind of, is that a stretch? Like they've lost a lot of guys, like even like the Justin Reeds of like this. Now the safety group is a problem. So the edge rushers are okay at best. I don't know, man. He's going to have to play very, very good.
It was very evident that they wanted to get the mismatch on Cam Hart, who was number 20, I think, for the Chargers. That's where the 2 Tyquan Thornton deep shots came from. So we'll see if like they have a corner that they feel like they can pick on in the future on those deep shots. The other part of that too, again, if everything was not everything, if a lot of the passes were closer line of scrimmage, like the vast majority of Hollywood Brown's 16 targets were, and then Travis Kelce only getting 4 targets for 2 catches, 47 yards. And one of those was, and the touchdown was a manufactured play, a fake slip screen that he goes completely uncovered and walks in the end zone. I'm not saying it's going to be this bad moving forward, and he's still got 10 plus points, but that's also on my radar too, that he can get more volume here.
Yeah, for sure. He probably could have had a second touchdown if he didn't like kind of stop. I thought I was on Travis Kelce, not Mahomes, down in the red area. Yeah, at the end of the day, though, like it's still going to be a decent enough offense in terms of like just raw receptions, and there's nobody else to really throw the ball to. So I feel like Travis Kelce's in a good spot to be like the tight end 4.
And it is Derwin James and Deion Henley,
Yeah.
and this could be
Yeah.
the strength as we've seen in the past with this Chargers defense.
Yeah.
I want to add, the plan moving forward is not to get Hollywood Brown 16 targets every single
Definitely
week.
not.
Like, good on him on 10 receptions, 99 yards. I know this is multiple weeks down the line, but try to get a deal done for Rashee Rice in your league. Once he comes back, he could be the one getting 16 targets or 14 targets or 12 or any of that stuff. Like, he, to me, is going to become the focal point of this passing game with Xavier Worthy sidelined.
Yeah, he's going to go nuts, especially if Worthy's not out there. You know who's not going to go nuts, though? Pacheco.
Yeah,
I mean,
talk about it.
Kareem Hunt was out there for 12 of 14 third down snaps. And then with 2 or fewer yards to go, Kareem Hunt was out there for 5 of 5. So until that changes, you cannot start Pacheco. He's a bench hold. You can't start Kareem Hunt either. It's just one of these where it's like, now they're probably going to be projected for 22 points a week, not 28, because the wide receivers are banged up and he's not playing enough.
We'll repeat this in Stats versus Film, but the first series was very indicative, where first down, Isaiah Pacheco was out there. Second down, Kareem Hunt was out there. Third down, Brashard Smith was out there.
It was nuts. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
luckily, Brashard
if Pacheco doesn't have
much.
goal line and he doesn't have passing downs and he basically only has first/second down, then where he was drafted, I don't know if that's going to continue the whole season, but it also wouldn't be surprising that how they use Brashard Smith on like these full formation motions, that is something that Andy Reid wants to get him involved with too.
Yeah, there's going to be some schemed up touches for him. I don't think he's really going to matter for fantasy, but yeah, Pacheco didn't play enough to be out there for now. So he's a bench hold. That's it.
Okay, Chargers. Justin Herbert, unreal. 25 of
So
34,
good.
318 yards, 3 scores, sacked 3 times, adds another 32 yards on the ground on 7 carries. Just throwing lightning bolts out there.
Yeah, obviously it's week 1. It's the regular season. This is what Justin Herbert's made for. But man, he looks like an MVP. And what's crazy is this year, I think he can actually make a case for it, because Greg Roman and Harbaugh know what they have. They had a 69% early down pass rate. He's never had that. Like last year, like that would have been number 1 in the NFL. That's like Joe Burrow level numbers out there. And we know Ladd's really good. Quentin Johnson made some plays. Even when he's dropping some passes, he still do for a couple of
High variance.
explosives.
Yep.
And then Keenan, like I thought, looked pretty dang good as well. So if they're just gonna like let it rip with Justin Herbert, which is not brand new, like after Ladd McConkey broke out, it was like week 8. This team was just like passing the ball at top 3, top 5 rates across the league. And that's what they did here. And it makes sense to me. They got like a pretty solid 3 wide receiver set right now that Justin Herbert's familiar with. And he also had 5 scrambles. So like, man, this is a good year to be a pro Justin Herbert guy.
You were always on the Keenan Allen train as soon as he re-signed with the Chargers. I was skeptical at first, but then joined you as the preseason went along, because it just kind of made sense, especially when Trey Harris wasn't performing. And then QJ is, again, a roller coaster still, which is totally fine. Someone posted a tweet that there's a whole bunch of Brazilian kids that think Quentin Johnson's the best wide receiver in the world after watching this one game. And that really made me laugh.
That's good.
I also want to bring up Omarion Hampton. We'll talk about this a lot more in Stats versus Film, but dominating the backfield basically with 15 carries for 48 yards and adding a couple of receptions onto a 2 for 13. It's good. I do think, and I went back and watched our rookie breakdown prior to the draft of Omarion Hampton, and I think you and I nailed it, where he's a big body who is super fast with excellent acceleration, but the lateral agility is a question. But when there's a lane carved out for him, he's going to hit that head on and be super fast. And that can be good enough to be a really good fantasy asset. The issue is it could have been even better for me if Rashawn Slater was starting on this team and the offensive line was just better versus, multiple starters in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, he got hit in the backfield a lot in this game. Chris Jones was a total menace out there. The guards had no chance against the Chiefs defensive line. So I thought Alt looked good. Hampton, I thought, looked good athletically, like you mentioned, like the burst. There's going to be some 50-yard touchdowns from him. He missed probably like 2 out of his touches. He probably picked the wrong hole. I thought we kind of got that at North Carolina too. So at the end of the day, 80% snaps, and I just watched that Chargers offense look awesome. They, on a per drive basis, were lights out, and he's playing 80% of the snaps. Like, to me, it's like zoom out. He's going to be great.
100%. It's one of those where it doesn't have to be binary, that when you bring up some, not even flaws in his profile, then that just means you think he's bad. It's like just the entire picture of good offense with a team that, while since about week 8 of last season, since Ladd went off, this team is positive and passing over expectation. Still, there's going to be easier matchups than against Chris Jones, where he's going to get some lanes between the tackles or outside and just going to break off some long runs because he, again, is a big dude. It's just, the decision making and then some lateral cuts and breaking tackles and all that type of stuff, which is kind of up in the air. Okay. We've got 3 more games to just talk about what we can't wait to look at. I got texts from my college buddies, one of them being a Jets fan, saying, Josh, this loss is on you about 75%. Because when the Jets went up in this game, I was like, good for Jets fans. They deserve this one. And then Aaron Rodgers goes out there, scores some touchdowns towards the end, 4 on the day for him on 244 yards passing, as the Steelers go to MetLife and win 34-32.
Yeah, before the games kick off, Josh and I discussed which games we want to cover. We got to choose these games. And when we don't choose a game and ends up at 34-32, then you know that we were not expecting any of this to happen. Yes. I mean, the box scores are ridiculous here. Every single time I was watching they would cut to a different game from this highlight from this game. It was just Justin Fields in the red zone, just running around like a madman. And it was good to see that he only dropped back, 23 times in this one. But I saw him taking some downfield shots, like the first one, obviously, to Garrett Wilson for the touchdown. Right. Like, that's what I want. Like, I want explosives, high variance Justin Fields, and then just be the athlete. Like, I did not like what he was trying to do with the Steelers last year, where he's like trying to prove to be some quarterback that he's not. Like, give me this version of Justin Fields. And it sounded like the offensive line held up, which was obviously a big question mark after losing to Elijah Vera Tucker.
Big takeaway is Jets are actually fun offensively. Like, last season, and with Aaron Rodgers, it's been difficult to figure out a positive identity for them. We talked about Johnny Morton with the Lions. It kind of feels like Tanner Engstrand, in his debut as a play caller here in the NFL, has already figured out Justin Fields' strengths, and he's working in those and creating an offense out of it. And then getting Garrett Wilson, 7 for 95 and 1. Like, even if that potentially is his best game or it's not, like, what a start. What a start for him here. Oh, yeah. And then we also have, a running back rotation with Breece Hall getting 19 carries, Braylon Allen getting the short yardage touchdown, Isaiah Davis popping up here with 2. But Breece Hall definitely looked explosive in this one.
Yeah, I'll watch this for stats versus film for like firm takeaways. But from the broadcast footage that I saw, Breece Hall looked athletically back, which I don't think we can say last year. And obviously coming back from the torn ACL a couple of years ago, that was not always the case. But Breece Hall is by far the most just like physically dominant player in this backfield to me. Obviously, Braylon Allen is also physically dominant, but does not have the wiggle that Breece Hall does. So if he plays like that, that's going to be great news for anyone that bought the dip.
For sure. And we'll see how it unfolds. Definitely. They get the Bills next and the Buccaneers over the next 2 weeks. Right now, the Bills, as we're recording this, are getting run straight through. So maybe that lines up exactly with what the Jets want to do. And we talked all about the other rookie running backs. I want to throw in Caleb Johnson only getting 1 carry in this game. So he is not even in your thought process at this moment versus Jalen Warren's 11 and Kenny Gainwell's 7. And I think Jalen Warren actually had a short yardage touchdown on top of it that he caught inside the 5 or 10 yard line. So if he's playing in that package and Caleb Johnson is not in that thought process, then that's going to be a while to go before he is fantasy relevant. Next is Arizona narrowly beating the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans 20-13. It felt like they had this game under control with 17 points in the first half, but only managed 3 in the second half. I really didn't get to watch much of this game other than the Marvin Harrison Jr. touchdown early out of I think it was a condensed split-ish, and it was mesh, which we love those middle of the field routes, and Kyler Murray hit him in a short yardage touchdown.
Yeah, it was good to see it. I also saw mentions that Marvin Harrison got a screen. So he's officially passed producer Weaves in the screen department. Trey McBride's still out there for 9 targets on 29 attempts from Kyler Murray. Taking 5 sacks is not what you love to see from Kyler here. But yeah, they got an explosive run out of Trey Benson, and then Marvin Harrison had explosive, then the red zone touchdown. So things are looking good. And then Trey McBride, I think he got a screen inside the 10-yard line, did not score a touchdown again. So it looks like maybe a similar-ish offense, but Marvin Harrison, hopefully a little bit better usage. So I want to go back and watch what that looked like.
Trey Benson had a long run of 52 yards. It was to the edge, and he just bounced it exactly like he did at Florida State and got to the sideline and ran it down. And then James Conner's inevitable, man. I mean, he gets a shovel pass touchdown here, 16 touches, about 45 yards, and gets in the end zone. We love to see it. Mr. Consistent out of him.
Old reliable.
On the Saints end, I read that Chris Olave on 3 separate occasions went into the blue tent today. Like, we're fully back when that happens.
Yeah, totally back. There's a couple players like that today. Puka just surviving huge. I mean, he took a monster hit from Will Johnson. So yeah, luckily dodged the concussion there. Yeah, 13 targets when you're not out there for 100% of the snaps. That seems like really good news.
And Juwan Johnson, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 76, was available in 17th, 18 rounds in a lot of leagues out there for best ball. And that's really nice volume here immediately. I didn't really see a lick of this. I just saw that Alvin Kamara scored an early touchdown. And we'll see what Kellen Moore's offense looks like moving forward. Okay, we'll close things out. Again, a game we didn't get to have eyes on. Bengals 17, Browns 16. Joe Burrow, just 113 yards, 1 passing score. This is after playing full preseason, full training camp with both his wide receivers. And this offense seemed extremely limited against this Browns defense.
They only ran 49 plays. The Browns had 71. Like, league average, like 61-ish, 62, kind of in that range. So 49 of them is not a lot. So it seemed like Joe Flacco like dinked and dunked the entire game. Like, they were both the rookies on the Browns side of this got the ball a ton. Like, Harold Fanta had the most receptions by a rookie tight end in week 1 in NFL history. We're talking about a third rounder from Bowling Green, who, by the way, caught 9 passes a game last year. So that was promising. Dylan Sampson got the ball a ton. Now, the blocking apparently up front on the ground was apparently terrible for the Browns. But yeah, I mean, the Bengals didn't have the ball the entire game.
On the Browns stuff with the 2 rookies, as you mentioned, Harold Fannin's 7 receptions are the most by rookie tight end in week 1 in NFL history. Dylan Sampson's 8 receptions, tied with Tariq Cohen for the most by a rookie running back in their first career game since 1990. We'll see what happens with Quinshon Judkins possibly joining this team moving forward. But I'm most interested in the Harold Fannin stuff for stats versus film. If it was more Kyle Juszczyk, fullback, Joker type stuff, or if it was, hey, we are a 12 personnel team and he's basically our slot wide receiver. And if that's the case, then he's a must add for you guys Monday night. I'm going to check out this game tomorrow. That's for sure.
Yep. Cedric Tillman touchdown 2, and Jerry Jeudy still gets 8 targets here. But I mean, yeah, they dropped back 47 times in this one. So, and they could not run the ball.
Maybe our questions on, hey, Kevin Stefanski, new offensive line coach, invested in 2 running backs. Nope. He's going to drop back 47 times. 47
times, man. They had, it was like the longest carry, I'm looking at it, is only 5 yards for the Browns. I looked that up. That's the second time the last 3 years that a team had 24 carries and the longest rush was 5 yards. The Giants were the other.
Believe we covered every single game there. Again, we will have plenty of content awaiting you tomorrow on Monday night. Hayden, Jacob, after Monday Night Football on the channel, talking through all of the massive sweeping changes for your waiver wire and players you need to add or drop. And then we're back on Tuesday. Stats versus film, the first of the season. Typically our biggest video of the year. If you're new around here, you'll definitely want to check it out. That is for sure. All right, everyone.
Good to be back.
Shout out to Hayden. Shout out to Moshe. Shout out to Weeds. Shout out to all of you for watching this. Up the Villa. We'll talk to you all soon. See you.